When it comes to how we break down our training, things can get very complicated very quickly. This confusion can then be compounded by other aspects of our fitness, such as rest, nutrition, exercise selection, and then before you know it, you're getting stressed and tired before you've even trained. Today, we're going to cut through all the noise around training splits, particularly when it comes to bodyweight training, and understand what is the best training split for calisthenics. Let's get into it. How you doing, Cali Crowd? Welcome back to the channel that makes calisthenics simple. Before we get into today's video, it's probably really good to understand what a training split even is. In a nutshell, it's the organization of how we train and dictates what exercises we do when we do them, as well as things like when we choose to take breaks from training. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at our more typical training splits and understand how they stack up in the context of calisthenics, starting with the bro split. The bro split is typically used by bodybuilders and is where we break up training by muscle groups and aim to isolate and target them across a training week to maximize the breadth of exertion we put them under. Right off the bat, you could probably already spot why this does not work for calisthenics. Isolation to this degree is just not possible given the compound nature of calisthenics exercise, where muscles we're not even focusing on may be getting worked. For many coming to the world of calisthenics from a bodybuilding or weightlifting background, it can be tempting to see how incompatible a bro split is to a calisthenics methodology of training, and then come to the conclusion that you cannot build muscle from calisthenics training, which is just simply not true, but more on that later. The next split we have is the full body. The polar opposite to the bro split, this is essentially the no split. With a full body ethos, we aim to develop the whole body in every training session. Training in this way is great for beginners, removing any complexity around navigating how to split up training by simply not doing that. This will likely have knock-on benefits to adherence, where if it is very simple for beginners to understand their training, then they're likely to do more of it. It also works well if you're time poor. If you can only train 2 or 3 times per week, for example, then this means you're getting a decent workout on all of your muscles in every session, instead of the reduced volume that you may get if you decided to split up your training. For those who have other fitness interests, full body may have further advantages because you can quite easily swap out a training day for a day of sport without creating much imbalances in your workouts. While this seems like a glowing account when it comes to full body, it does come with a few downsides as well. First of which is that you will likely need more recovery days. If we're putting our entire body through its paces, particularly with a calisthenics methodology of training, it will be unlikely that you can sustain it for a prolonged period of time. If you're the sort of person that enjoys training hard on most days in the week, then full body just won't be for you. Following on from this, we have to closely manage intra-session fatigue. If you're training a full body split to a calisthenics focus, with a whole bunch of heavy compound lifts, then you may find that the quality of your training at the beginning of your session is just leaps and bounds beyond the shift you can put in at the tail end of your session. If the last few exercises of your full body workout feel that you're just getting over the line and you're just doing them because you have to, then this might just be wasted time. There's also a big risk that you may just get bored. Even if we mix up the exercises that we do session to session, we're still coming to each training day with a singular focus: train the whole body. And while this is very simple, it also might get boring. Another popular split is the upper-lower split. As the name suggests, this is when we segment our training days by upper and lower body exercises. The first pro of this approach is that we have more opportunity for training volume than in full body. By training on back-to-back days, we can rest what we trained the day before. And again, with most bodyweight exercises utilizing various muscle groups at the same time, managing recovery is just all the more important. We also have the very obvious benefit of balancing out our upper and lower body training. Calisthenics athletes get a bad rap for being very light on the legs. But for those whom a balanced physique is very important, this becomes very simple in an upper-lower split. In terms of the downsides, the main one that comes to mind is the difficulty to learn multiple skills in one go with an upper-lower split. Consider somebody that wants to learn how to handstand and muscle up, a pushing and a pulling skill. If we give this person 60 minutes to work out on an upper body training day, it becomes very difficult to figure out where they will fit in the necessary time for skill practice and strengthening exercises. This is before we consider any time that they may want to set aside for a warm-up or maintaining any skills that they may have acquired in the past. We then have push-pull legs, a training split where we group exercises by the nature of what we're getting the body to do. There is a really great opportunity for training volume here, maybe even more than in an upper-lower split. And actually, with push-pull legs, it becomes easier to manage learning multiple skills at the same time. Taking the example of a 60-minute training session again, we can afford to allow more time for skill acquisition. Quality practice is the most important aspect of learning a new skill, but we can also follow this up with all the necessary accessory exercises that support with having the strength to do the skill in the first place. With push-pull legs, it's also very easy to manage intra-training fatigue as well. Because of the nature of push-pull legs, it lends itself to allowing us to have the larger, more demanding lifts at the beginning of our session, with the accessory or prehabilitation movements towards the end of our session. Attached to this, it also makes it very easy to incorporate weighted lifts in this split, as we have the time in the session to work on non-calisthenics oriented exercises as well. The first drawback of push-pull legs is that it is not ideal for beginners. While beginners could very easily apply a push-pull legs training split, I'd argue that the simplicity of an upper-lower split or a full body is significantly better suited for somebody starting out. You also need to be very organized to maintain a push-pull legs training schedule. With such a varied split, missing just one day can mess up the balance of your entire training cycle, which can be very frustrating. Imagine trying to tell your kid that you can't go to their recital because it clashes with leg day. It can also be very tricky to categorize some calisthenics movements. An exercise like skin the cat is largely seen as a pulling movement, but it has huge demands on the chest and shoulders, so may then affect recovery from your push day training. Furthermore, it can be very tough to identify overtraining. In calisthenics, working a pushing movement, for example, will still place a huge demand on the legs, core, and various pulling muscles, not to mention the demands on your central nervous system. This can lead to overtraining without you even realizing it. So how do we take all of this information and apply it to our individual situation? What training split is best for calisthenics? Well, by identifying the advantages of each training split, we can adopt the method that applies most to our training goals at that time. For example, when I'm in the process of learning a new skill and I'm laser focused on it, I adopt a push-pull legs approach. But when my focus is on building muscle, usually in preparation for learning a skill, I typically have a upper-lower split. Do what works for you, and while training splits might seem really important, there are a great many things, nutrition, rest, adherence, volume, that matter significantly more. But crowd, I want to know what you're doing. What training split do you guys adopt? In your opinion, what training split is best for calisthenics? Let me know down in the comment section below, and crowd, I'll see you in the next one.